Hello and welcome. My name is Dwayne Farquhar. We're here with Intercourt Creative and we're talking to our Artist of the Quarter, Dawn Koltz. Dawn is a professional textile artist and quilter. She's been doing this for about 15 years now. Dawn has been a business owner. She's owned a quilt shop. She has had her work hung in many shows. She has been published in a national magazine called American Quilter, one of 3 people who designed a pattern that was published in that. And you currently have work in the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So we welcome Dawn Koltz with us. Dawn, I just want to ask you a couple questions and we'll kind of talk about what you do. And first of all, thanks for letting us in your home and
You're very welcome.
with your beautiful quilts. I appreciate that. Thanks. So how long have you been doing this? We said about 15 years. How many quilts have you done in that time?
About 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
So about 10 a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of production for anybody, for any artist.
Very much so, yeah.
Is this did this start out as a hobby, or was this something that you just really wanted to do, or how did that come about?
Well, there's always been I grew up sewing. My mother taught me how to sew, and I don't know when or where or how I gained I remember wanting to make a quilt when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and to use, because many quilts, vintage quilts were made from old clothing, and so I remember thinking that it would be cool to do that. And never finished it, but that has always stayed with me, and so when I had the opportunity to make a quilt for some friends of ours in Germany, it just was a natural kind of a progression.
So now quilting is kind of a traditional American art form.
It's actually very, very international.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, there's quilts from probably Western Europe to the Americas. Yeah.
And they were done for memory. I know obviously they're functional. They're for
Mm-hmm.
keeping warm, but there was kind of a historical aspect to it for families. They would get pieces together and things like that. Is that right?
Well, there, in terms of family history, yes, but a lot of quilts were made for political reasons as well. They expressed political views, and many there are several quilts that you can go to, and they'll actually have some of the first ladies' signatures on them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really, or they'll put on the candidates, presidential candidates that they liked. Incorporated them into their quilts.
Well, and I know that there were some quilts made about the Underground Railroad that actually had directions on them, things like that. So this is an art form that's been around a long time.
Very much.
But you're not doing what's necessarily traditional quilting. You're more of an art quilter.
Well, of course, I started off as a traditional quilter because that's kind of where most people learn to learn the techniques. But in the last several years, I've become more interested in art quilting just because it's just a whole different way of looking at fabric and color and composition that has really intrigued me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So this has kind of been something that you've been working toward for over 15 years. And you can see some of the quilts in the background. I noticed that you've got a very strong kind of a geometric feeling in your pieces, but more than anything, I see just a lot of color. Mm-hmm. Would you say that color is kind of your main focus in your quilting?
I enjoy color. I discovered recently that I thought it was fabric that I was addicted to, and then discovered, as I thought about it, that it was really color that I just turns my crank, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And because I thought of different stores that I would go into and being jazzed by what I saw, whether it was towels in a bathroom, bed and bath section, or whether it was at Bath and Body Works looking at all the wonderful colors of lotions and bath products and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was always the color that intrigued me and just really got me excited.
So let me ask you about that. What is it about color that gets you excited? I mean, some people like pink, some people like green, but what is it about color that and using those that really works for you?
Well, the quilt behind you, for example, is just it's the rainbow. I mean, it's just it's the progression of the color wheel. And it just fascinates me. I don't know that I can put a real thumb to it, a finger on it, but it's creative, it's exciting, it communicates, and so I just really enjoy playing with it.
Now, we got together and talked a little bit before we did this video, and we talked a little bit about this, and I'd like you to expand a little bit more on it if you can, but we talked about color is a very scientific thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's very mathematical. It's got, each color has a different wavelength. There's color have primary and secondary and tertiary relationships and things like that. But color is also a very emotional lever, and has been for quite some time. So what is it about putting those together that you find, those relationships between colors when you're doing things? What is it that resonates with you about that?
Color, well, you'll find in a lot of psychology books that color, there is a language to color. There is the green of envy, there's the blue of being depressed or sad, there's the red of passion or anger. So things like that color communicates. Color communicates mood, it communicates thought. It can bring you back to, you could see a certain combination of colors and it could take you back to a childhood memory. And so it's very evocative that way.
And what about the colors working with other colors?
It's really interesting because there are certain color combinations that when they play off of each other will cause, so if you have red, let's take green and orange, very closely, they're complementary color schemes, red and green are, but when you put green and orange together, when the orange plays off of the green, it'll go to the red, and so it's a very interesting. Colors do affect each other when they're in next to each other, and whether it's a hue or a tint or a shade or a tone, they'll very definitely affect the mood and the brightness or darkness or just the tonal quality of the.
So a green next to a red is going to give you a different feeling than a green next to a blue.
Yes.
Or a green next to a yellow.
So green and red, what do we think of? We think of Christmas.
Yeah.
But green and blue, we probably think more of the ocean, more of just a nice summer day, those kinds of things.
So is it just the relationships of colors that intrigues you as they change as you put these things together?
Yes, very definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see here. I'm going to turn my interview paper over. So how do you work your process? I mean, what is the process of putting your quilt together? How do you do that?
It can, if it's a regular quilt, a lot of times it'll start with a pattern from a book that I would like to work with, and especially depending on the colors of the sample in the pattern. If I don't like them, I think, well, what can I do to change this and make it more fun, make it more to what I enjoy, and or what would a lot of art, which is played what if I did, what if I used this material instead of that fabric, or these colors instead of those, what if I didn't decide to use a traditional color scheme, what if I tweaked it a little bit and put something else totally unexpected in there, what would that do? And so that's kind of a fun thing to do.
It's just kind of almost like Christmas when it finally comes together and you see what's going on. There's
definitely
kind of
the
surprise in the
factor.
process.
I do. I often surprise myself.
I don't know an artist that doesn't really. So what do you want people to take away from viewing your quilts when people look at your art? What is it that you want them to see?
Because of my relationship with the Lord, and the Lord He created this world with color. And to me, it's just one of those inherent, innate, however you want to describe it, qualities of God that I thoroughly enjoy, and there's just such joy to me in color, and that's what I hope people take away from it, is just that joy of these colors that are so exciting to me.
Well, and you were giving me some examples earlier. I mean, just out of the word where color is used.
Yeah, in Isaiah, the Lord talks about, though your sins be as scarlet, yet they shall be as white as wool. So we have that contrast of red, there's red and white, and the priestly garments are described in great detail, of using scarlet and purple and gold and blue, and the colors of the stones in the ephod, the gemstones that each tribe was.
Yeah, and each tribe had its own color.
Each tribe had its own gemstone and color, therefore. So it's really, color plays, color, we're surrounded, we can't get away from it.
And that's part of the vibrancy in life of what God did for us. Well, that's very cool. Dawn, we really thank you for letting us come and talk to you today. Thanks so much.
Glad you did.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in another video. Bye-bye.